Welcome everyone. Get ready for a digital cash face-off. As central banks roll out CBDCs and stable coins expand their dominance, we're headed toward a fascinating collision of public versus private digital currencies. This session will tackle the burning question: can Tether, USDC, and CBDCs really coexist? Or is a showdown inevitable? Moderated by none other than Anton Golub, Chief Business Officer at Freedx. Please give him and the panel a warm round of applause.
So thank you everyone for joining us. We have an amazing guest with an amazing hot topic of stablecoins. So I'm sure it's going to be very exciting. And to dive, straight into it, we're going to, I think, first describe and explain to everyone in the audience, what is a stablecoin, just so we are all in the same term. Then love to hear your thoughts about the battle, as Dushka said, between the USDT, USDC. We also have some really bleeding, cutting-edge topics that are coming out lately. The Genius Act in US, so stablecoin regulation. Talking recently about, or 2 days ago, JP Morgan stablecoin. Walmart stablecoin, so things are happening, right? So to dive straight into, I would love if you could actually first introduce yourself, introduce your business, and then from your words, what is a stablecoin? Why is it so important for the industry?
Hi.
Please go ahead.
So my name is Lior Aizik. I'm a co-founder and CEO of XPO.com. XPO is a crypto exchange licensed in Europe and offshore. Offering all kinds of crypto services for corporate and retailers, and especially crypto processing solution for merchants and their clients.
John Woods, SVP Commercial with BVNK. BVNK is a three-tiered business. We have a crypto arm that manages payments, OTC, and liquidity. We have a banking arm, EMIs that manage US dollar, GBP, and euro, and then we've got a technology arm, which is wallet and infrastructure, like Fireblocks, for example, and that is specifically with embedded payments orchestration, trading, and various user interfaces, etc., that enable businesses to bring treasury in-house, to bring payments in-house, and various things.
Awesome. So then, just to dive straight in, Lior, can you explain in plain words to us or into the audience what is a stablecoin, and maybe then as a follow-up, how does your business use stablecoins in particular? Yeah.
Okay. So stablecoins, in a very high level, is just a crypto coin operating on the blockchain, allowing its holders to have a $1-to-1 stable coin. That's why the stable coins are. Why do we need stable coins? Basically, we have crypto holders, digital assets. They don't want to use traditional financial coins like USD, Euro, etc., etc. They want to keep the crypto, but they don't want to be exposed to the crypto volatility. For example, there's a big difference if you keep Bitcoin, or if you keep Ethereum, or you keep Solana from the volatility, but it's still volatile. And if you want to keep your crypto but have it stable, that's why they generated the stable coins. The two main stable coins that we have right now in the market, over 75% of stable coins is USDT and USDC. As far as the value that it brings for the holders, so we as a crypto exchange, so we have users, retail and corporate, that use stable coins in various use cases. For the retail, you keep the stable coins because you get yield. You have a very high yield for USDT, especially because it's a very common trading pair, and especially in the futures with leverage. So it's allow crypto exchanges to provide a high yield. 8, 9, 10% much more higher than you get in the bank, with the blockchain security, with the blockchain advantages. As far as the corporate goes, it's quite similar. It allows you to basically harness the power of blockchain payments from merchants and from clients. It's very quick, it's very easy, there's no chargeback, so there's a lot of advantages on the crypto payments with stablecoins. And when they keep the stablecoins on their account, they also can enjoy the yield, and they also can easily convert it to fiat and vice versa.
Yeah. Jonathan, Lior very nicely explained what stablecoins are, what are the use cases, which are quite diverse, we have to say, right? Something for traders, something for retail, something for corporates, right? For the projects themselves. But on many occasions, he mentioned the two key stablecoin issuers, or stablecoins, USDT from Tether, USDC from Circle. Can you share with the audience a little bit, how come we have these two dominant ones? What is the differentiation, if any? What is else out there? And maybe your outlook a little bit on the future of stablecoins, maybe even from the FX perspective, yeah?
Yeah, sure. Well, firstly, currently the market, there are over 200 stablecoins. So there are a lot out there. But there are some bad players, there are some okay players. Tether was the market leader, USDT. It was the initial adopter. They set up a home offshore in the Caribbean islands, and they essentially were the market leaders, which allowed for much quicker, much more aggressive adoption. USDC took a different tack. They went for full SEC regulation. They were launched out of the US. They were seeing themselves as the dominant institutional coin. So when central banks engaged eventually in stablecoin, when large-scale regulated financial institutions engaged in stablecoin, they would want 100% clarity on what that treasury of that stablecoin looked like and what assets were being held within that treasury, to make sure that when they were doing the one-for-one transfer back into US dollars, or they were holding this asset to gain yield, that there was sufficient treasury within that in a doomsday event when every single USDC is converted back into US dollars, that there's enough liquidity in the bank in order to execute that conversion. We've recently seen USDT being delisted by most exchanges, award exchanges, I think in Europe, as a result of the onset of MiCA regulation. The onset of MiCA regulation has come out and said that Tether doesn't have domestic regulation. They're not providing us with the necessary clarity. So it created a bit of a cloud, or a big cloud, within the USDT community in Europe. We haven't seen significant downturn as a result of that, so it hasn't caused widespread panic. We still see significant Tether volumes within the BVNK ecosystem, and trumps USDC every day of the week. The last point is the aggressive yields or staking returns that you can get on USDT. Generally, the higher the return, the higher the risk. So if you're earning 9, 10, 11%, clearly you're dabbling in a much more risk on assets as opposed to the 3.5% to 4.5% which companies comfortably get with USDC. And then you add your business risk. Tether's been around for a decade, it's still here. Isn't going to flop tomorrow. I know Anton's going to get into various acts that have been released. I won't spill his beads, but I think that a lot of that is going to normalize the ecosystem.
Okay. And now continue on that topic. So we mentioned we have two predominant stablecoins. We kind of got the impression they're used all around the world, right? But now certain regulation is coming into place, right? It either has already come into place or is very fresh and new, like in US, for instance. So, Lior, can you explain a little bit to the audience, even though we have this coin, this dollar coin, that's supposed to be globally accepted, we have regulation that's bound by jurisdictions. Can you maybe describe the landscape a little bit, kind of how you see it from an exchange perspective? What's the difference in Europe? What's the difference offshore? What's the difference in US, UAE? If you can kind of explain it a little bit, because I think it's important to understand that actually we're still always bound by the local regulation where we use the stablecoins. Yeah.
Yes. So my esteemed colleague here explained very, very well about the differences between the stablecoins and obviously regulation in a bit. But in general, yes, USDT is the major stablecoin. The first one came with the tech, came with the notion of stablecoins for the crypto holders, and spread the word, and that's why it's the most popular one. USDC came with a more institutional state of a very clear and transparent framework of how he's managing the stable engine on the back and how he's banking his liquidity. And that's why it's more considered to be regulated. And now, because of MiCA, we do have the listing of USDT because it doesn't consider to be regulated under MiCA. Before that, there was no real differences between them, other than the one being more popular than the other. So we also, as a crypto exchange operating in Europe, we do have the same limitations. So we do have a solution for it on the global level. So we have the offshore entities still providing the USDT, and we have the European MiCA regulation that doesn't provide the USDT. And then we see that, so this is MiCA adopting some kind of regulation, and now we see Genius yesterday, first federal law passed, clearly establishing a clear framework about what is a stable coins, the one-to-one banking and everything. As in general, regulation and those kind of compliance and requirements can be tough on businesses.
Yes.
Crypto exchange and other. It's a lot of cost with every aspect of the business, whether it's a new technology you need to adopt, whether it's a operational effort that you need to adopt. But in general, I believe that, and I said the same about MiCA in general, coming into Europe, and I said the same about regulation in stablecoins. At the end, the regulation not necessarily always provide the correct guidelines, because they are not always the person that are establishing the rules, and the framework are not necessarily the one that understand completely the technology. And we won't get into MiCA now, I'm just saying. But as far as in general, once we have a clear framework about what we need to do and how we need to do it, by the way, most businesses that are working properly have it anyway. So now it's only about more evidence, more compliance. But in general, as a business, you always want to be the safest, the most secure, the most stable for your clients, the most transparent one. So most of the regulation guidelines are supposed to be this, supporting this one, and you as a business wants to provide it to your clients. I believe as this regulation comes to pass, I think USDT will follow USDC.
Okay.
And I believe otherwise, maybe they will choose another way to expand, but I think the world is going to this direction. The adoption of crypto in general is low. Stablecoins is only a part of the global crypto adoption. So the more we will see a more transparent frameworks of regulation coming and enforcing the laws across the different jurisdictions, I think it will give the trust and the confidence for the users to start increasing the crypto usage. We'll see a higher crypto adoption. In the end, the blockchain, besides AI, is one of the biggest revolutions that we have in our generation, and I think it's only going to increase.
Okay. So we learn now that actually based on the regulation, sometimes either users and clients can have access to a certain stablecoin or not have it, for instance. As we kind of now know that in Europe, because Tether with the USDC is not MiCA compliant, exchanges have to delist it, right? But it's very interesting that most of the time now we are kept on repeating dollar stablecoin, dollar stablecoin. So Jonathan, maybe from you a question on the FX side. Where are all the other stablecoins? So where is the euro stablecoin? If we reflect on the traditional finance on the FX world, we have the dollar as the reserve currency, right? But then you have a big chunk of trade actually or trading in euro. So what is happening then in the stablecoin world? Where are the euro stablecoins? Where are the AD, dirham stablecoins, yuan? Where is those stablecoins? Kind of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, guys, I just had to redo my makeup.
Yes, looking good.
So I think the simple answer is, Anton, that they're there. They've just been extremely poorly marketed. And the domestic ecosystem to enable that cryptocurrency. So US dollar, we all know, is the predominant and the dominant trade currency globally. US dollar stablecoins were always going to be very aggressively adopted. Circle launched the Circle Euro EURC a couple of years ago already. I think it was June 2 years ago that it launched. And it's been a fundamental failure. Circle, as we saw with the rise of USDC, went very institutional. And the institutional adoption globally was already there with USDT. We haven't seen a powerhouse with the marketing ability and the distribution network of a Tether being that aggressive that it was with the USDT within the rest of the markets. Are we now sitting and waiting for regulation to come to the fore? We've already discussed the regulation, and what does that come with? That comes with central bank-backed digital currencies. So are we now seeing global stable coins to be equivalent to central bank-backed digital currencies, the CBDCs? I honestly don't think so, definitely not at this stage. Domestic currencies have always been strong domestically and their domestic use cases, but we always know that when you send a SWIFT transfer, it takes 3 to 7 days versus when you send a SEPA transfer, it's near instant or an hour or two. So the domestic rails have always been stronger. What I see is that the initial launch of a CBDC is going to be the link between public sector and private sector. We're talking central bank to tier 1 banks. That distribution network is slow, it's archaic, and we always know that the public sector, regardless of the country, is the slowest sector to move. The dirham stablecoin is in discussion and has been in advanced discussion. You mentioned what is the difference between offshore versus onshore regulation. I think that the easiest way to depict in your head the difference between onshore and offshore regulation is startup versus scale-up versus corporate, right? The FCA in London is the corporate. Bermuda, for example, is probably the scale-up because it replicated the FCA regulation to a large extent, and then the UAEs and a lot of the other smaller islands are that sort of startup mentality where the crypto regulation is brand new and it's been evolving at a rapid rate. So the fact that the UAE came out and their marketing team came out so aggressively and so well, I mean, Anton, you and I both live there, and we can see the rise over the last 6 to 7 years. I do feel like the UAE is probably going to be one of the bleeding edges in terms of launching the CBDC. What I'm not clear on is the strategy around Circle, the strategy around Tether, and any new players coming into the market on how they're going to release additional stablecoins to comply with domestic, or if they're going to force countries like they already have in Europe to adopt US dollar as their main currency, and if they want to access to that euro, to force that access back into fiat off-ramping. So the answer, in summary, is they're there. They're just very poorly adopted, and question is, how do we drive that adoption? Okay. I think that's why we're here today.
Okay,
drive commerce.
So we talked about one failure so far, which was the euro stablecoins. Then we talked about another bigger failure so far, which is the CBDCs. That's at least the track record so far. But we are also now seeing the emergence of, let's say, corporate deposit or stablecoins. I hinted at that, saying Walmart, so one of the, I think it is the biggest retailer in the world, or one of the biggest retailers, wants to create like an internal deposit token or internal stablecoin, right? JP Morgan as well, we just had an announcement a few days ago, has also launched a pilot, right, for an internal stablecoins that allows instantaneous 24/7 settlement within JP Morgan, right? So it seems like we have a bifurcation here. We have the stablecoins that's meant for everyone or most. We're seeing CBDCs, which you mentioned as well, might it have its own target client segment, which would be the banks. What about the corporates, right? What are your thoughts about that? Is it feasible that XBO in the future issues its own internal stablecoin for efficient treasury management. I know we're speculating here, but what are your thoughts about these big announcements from Walmart, JP Morgan, and so on? How do you see that, Jan?
Yeah. So, first of all, we all understand that the power of stablecoins and USDT, later on USDC, basically came from the bottom, right, from the ground up.
Yes.
There is a real need for it because the fiat solutions and the central banks and the more traditional financial institutions doesn't have the solutions that the blockchain provides for its users, and this is how it's growth. So this is what powered this huge growth, and I'm not sure there's much like a new force coming to create a new USDT because it's already very, very strongly adopted, established within the growth of the engine, the whole borrowing mechanism, the whole future trading, which is generating this whole borrowing mechanism in the USDT and the USDC. It's come from somewhere. It's come from the demand and supply. For the merchants, the use of stablecoins is amazing. You can get the deposits and the payouts to their clients instantly. Everything is transparent. Everything is on the blockchain. No fear of chargebacks. No high payments for banks. Very lower fees. So the advantages for the corporates are amazing. They are there. I think I heard Walmart, if they are switching into stable coins, they can save over $780 million in fees, only just from switching in a year.
Yes.
Only from switching to a stable coin. So it's huge. Now the question, as a merchant, whether I use stablecoin or do I need to invent a stablecoin? So if you are a Walmart and you have this kind of a huge ecosystem, creating a R&D and creating some internal network and harnessing the power of blockchain and creating your own solution to your own ecosystem, probably, I think probably they are making the right decision. But most of the market is merchants that are not Walmart. And in this case, they will need to use solutions like crypto processing solution, like exchanges, like digital banks that will allow them to easily accept crypto or stable coins, quick settlements to fiat, and then basically enjoy the benefits of it.
Okay. I think it's very interesting kind of how you describe this evolution on the corporate side, because a few might remember that in 2018 we had actually Facebook who wanted to create its own stablecoin, right? So it was this famous Libra that was supposed to be set up in Switzerland, got shut down very quickly from US, by the way, right? So it was not happening. But it seems like the adoption is now happening faster. So Stripe, which is one of the world's biggest payment processors, let's call it like that, acquired wallet infrastructure, right?
Bridge,
Yes. We had now the IPO of Circle. We keep on repeating USDC and Circle. Circle had a successful IPO recently. So can you share, Jonathan, a little bit more from your perspective, your side? What do you see? How is that adoption going forward? Because all three of us are kind of in the crypto world. We're in this craziness, in this bubble. What do you see from the outside? And also, what do you see for BVNK?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, so Stripe's acquisition of Bridge was one of the big catalysts last year, that and Trump getting elected for the revival of crypto and stablecoin in general. In future, I mean, you mentioned Meta launching its own stablecoin, Libra. I'm not sure the use cases were fundamentally understood at that stage. It was the time when everybody was launching their own NFTs and they were launching all kinds of weird and wonderful crypto stuff that there was zero uptake on. For the future, I mean, let's talk FX and CFDs for a second. If we manage to move fiat rails significantly enough onto blockchain-enabled rails, This means a 24/7 system as opposed to an 8 to 5, following 5 days a week global markets. This immediately means more trade, more volume, and aggressive growth in economies generally. So that's one specific use case. And we ask ourselves, have we forgotten also that blockchain has already showed ourselves in the banks of old, the Silvergates and Signatures, that they were the OG crypto banks. Yes, they no longer exist, probably because of really poor management teams, but they had phenomenal early market adoption, and they had blockchain-enabled rails within that bank that attracted OTC players, exchange players, liquidity providers, all within that crypto ecosystem to have a 24/7, 365 way of engaging with each other. And at no stage could you ever say to your client, no, we can't trade you today. So I remember in a previous life running around at midnight, having to execute a client trade because you're sitting in the UAE time zone, he's in the US time zone, and you're a startup, right? So you never say no. And the crypto industries never slept. And I think as the traditional industries don't sleep, the ways of working need to shift. And the use cases are just going to fly through. I mean, you mentioned JP Morgan and you mentioned the wholesale outlet. Walmart, sorry. And with the two of them, I don't fundamentally understand the use cases and the specific adoption immediately, but you've got to ask yourself, in order to release that specific stablecoin, is it a rewards program that I'm trying to enable? How is my end user going to engage with this, and how am I making it easy for my end user to adopt this in order to have scalability? So I think it's always about end user adoption and the ease of adoption, and not making it this hard, inaccessible, go out and create a wallet, and half of the general public panic because they've never heard of even a wallet. Something is that simple. So it's all good and well to market and get PR on the back of it, but what is my strategy for adoption is the big question.
Okay.
And I think I want to add something very, very important, that the biggest problem that we have right now with the crypto payments, the ability or crypto adoption, if you want to make payments in crypto, is the fact that it's cheaper, it's easier, it's quick, but it's not simple enough for everyone yet. And in this way, it's still easier to pay with card if you have the card.
Yes.
And you have it saved on the browser and stuff like that. So this is a huge challenge that I don't think we figured out yet.
Okay. Maybe then, I think we covered stablecoins quite holistically. So from the use case, how they came about, regulation, this conflict or co-living with CBDCs. I have one last question for both of you, maybe more on the provocative side. President Trump launched his own stablecoin, USD1, or how is it called? Please, each one of you, what are your thoughts on that? What is the use case? When is the implementation, if any, within your platform? What do you think about these kind of initiatives?
Wow. You want to start?
Yes.
No, you first.
Sure. I think the use case is simple. It's the on-ramping for the meme coin, Trump and Melania.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's a mechanism for double dipping. No, being a little bit tongue in cheek, but I mean, if you can launch a meme coin and still at this stage, with all the launches of meme coins, think that there's still a fundamental use case. No, and I think Trump has been great for global commerce and bad for global commerce, depending on what side of the fence you sit, right? And my one comment on his stablecoin is I think he loves the media attention.
Okay.
And he loves the sensationalism. And for him to be able to say anything whenever he feels like it is just classic Trump. And I don't see him stopping.
Okay. Lior, go ahead.
So, yes, I have to say that everything related to Trump is very entertainment-wise. As far as Trump coins in general, like the Trump meme coin, I'm not a fan of meme coins in general, I have to say. If I'm taking my personal opinion here. But however, as a crypto exchange, we serve our clients and our clients' needs. So if there is users, or there are users that that are looking to buy or sell this Trump coin, we added it to the exchange. Yeah, we listed Trump coin and we enabled our users to use it. About the stable coins, I also agree that I don't see the use cases in Trump stable coins. I don't see the huge crypto adoption here. I don't predict to have many users that will use these stable coins. But if there will be some kind of a demand from the public, there's no objection from our side to list it to our exchange, but for sure I don't recommend it, yeah?
Excellent. So you heard it. It's all about the market demand. The market is there. We don't challenge the utility. So thank you very much to the guests. Thank you very much to the audience. If you have some questions for them, please fire away later. Grab them. And thank you very much for joining. Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good.